Hi, I'm Joe Kramer, host of the Ruck On Show. I believe that life, much like rucking, is a journey. On this show, we examine various aspects on this ruck march of life. From overcoming obstacles to dealing with setbacks, there's a takeaway for you on your journey. The Ruck On Show is sponsored by the Ruck On 30-Day Challenge. Grab your copy of this Rucking Workout Challenge at ruckon.com. That's ruck-on.com. Let's get started with today's show.
All right. Welcome to episode 1 of the Ruck On podcast. I'm joined tonight by an old high school friend of mine, Nick Grage. He's got his own podcast that he's working on, Get Back Up blog. We just filmed an episode for that, and now he's being awesome and reciprocating the support, and he's my first guest. So I'll let Nick kind of say hi, introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Hey, Joe. Well, hey, I'm honored to be your first guest. That's pretty sweet. My name is Nick Grage. Like Joe said, we went to high school together. I was a grade above him, I think. We've kept in touch, and I also, I do a podcast as well called Get Back Up. Basically, it's meant to provide help people, with a positive mentality, keeping them more on the positive side of the spectrum of their mind rather than digging into allowing themselves to go into sort of a sadness or depression. So it's just a little bit of a pick me up every Monday for Motivation Monday. So it's fun. I love doing it. If you want to follow, go for it, but it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Well, and we'll definitely make sure to put links in, and we'll touch on it at the end of the show, how people can follow you and stay in touch and follow Get Back Up.
Sure.
Well, we've talked a little bit, before we jumped on the call, filming your episode for Get Back Up. And so my goal for the Ruck On show, I see rucking as kind of a metaphor, like we talked about, for life and for the little kind of twists and turns, the little mini rucks in our life. And so my goal is just to have people on and kind of share, the ruck that they're going through, whether it's, a long term, a short term, you might still be in it right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, when we were talking about the metaphor, I was thinking about how it can pertain to my life and how it can pertain to ways that I've tried to help people, but also help myself. And I feel like there's a lot of different ways that you can look into, quote unquote rucking. The first way I see is kind of what you mentioned, where it's one long life ruck, from point A to point B. And I think that's a really good way to look at it, but I don't think that's real. To me, a real ruck is going to be, your life steps is point A to point B to point C to point D, and so on and so forth down to Z or a zillion or however how far you want to go.
Yeah.
But I also, and this is just something that I thought of, as we were talking, I also see two different paths of rucking. So, for example, you have your personal life, your relationships and your, your home life, and then you kind of have your professional life, and then you kind of have your hobbies. And I kind of almost see those as separate rucks themselves, because you can be at a point C to point D ruck in your personal life, but you may be at a point A to point B ruck in your work life. And so I almost see those as separate rucks, because you don't want to really put all your eggs into one basket and go and only focus on your, your relationship, because if you don't, you got to make money to be able to have a family. So,
that's an interesting insight.
Yeah. So that was something I was thinking about. And I was like, I feel like for me, everything has been pretty balanced so far. The way my life is going, I think I'm very early in my ruck. I really feel like there's so much more down the road to shoot for, because what I'm doing now is great, and I love doing it. I love the hobby I'm doing with Get Back Up, and I love my career that I'm in right now with just starting this brand new, startup company. It's amazing, but man, there is so much more down that road that I know that I could do if I continue to like push on this ruck. Because kind of like what we talked about before, where rucking can be, a struggle, or it can, it's hard work. I mean, you're not going to get to that next point without putting in that hard work and determination. And that's the same with your job or with a relationship too. So I know there's more down the road, and I don't know what that is, but like I'm stoked for it.
Nice. Well, I'm stoked for you. So something you mentioning kind of how you have your separate rucks. I think that's a really interesting insight, and I hope future guests kind of have different ways of looking at rucking, because I think that's really cool. I want to know what it means to other people. Part of, at least in the military, part of rucking, you kind of you plan out a route. You have a map, you study the terrain, where should I go, what should I avoid. Is there any particular ruck of yours, whether it be personal, professional, hobbies, that you wouldn't mind sharing, kind of like what you see on your map? Do you kind of see the end state, or what does that look like? Or, maybe what does the path to get there look like?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think it's definitely beneficial to have some sort of a plan or a map for the goals that you want in life. Goals for me specifically, I mean, I want eventually to be my hobby and my career life to merge into one ruck. I mean, that's obviously, I feel like that's what a lot of people would love to do. That's something that I do strive for, but it's going to take a lot of work and effort for that. So with the podcast that I have now, I would say that the plan for that is to create that, to be able to have people who legitimately want to see the positive side of life, no matter what happens in their life. Just be able to kind of listen to my podcast with my interviews and people that I bring on, and kind of the insight that I've had throughout my life, and be able for them to be able to see that as well. And then from there, hopefully I'm hoping it to grow a little bit more, and have it stretch out a little bit further into other demographics, and have people of all different cultures and races, and all of those people just kind of be able to come together and understand, and like have that positive mindset, and be able to support each other. From there, I would love to be able to do even more, be able to speak at conferences, or speak at anything that people would bring me in to speak for. That's a huge goal of mine, is to be able to speak to people that might need to hear a little bit of an extra kick in the butt, or something that's just bugging them in the back of their head. If they hear an episode and they want to email me and talk to me about it, man, I'd be so down for that. So little things like that, to be able to put my sales career, which is, I love sales, but eventually I'd love to be able to just help everyone's positive mentality even more. So I'd love to be able to put all my eggs in that basket. But like I said, you got to make money to be able to support everything else. And that's where, having a podcast in its early stages, you're not going to make money off of it. It's just a hobby. So eventually down the road, that's the idea. So that's kind of where my map's at. But I mean, like I said, there's going to be obstacles that I have no idea is coming yet. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's a bunch of different, sayings in the no plan survives first contact, and plans are worthless, but planning's essential. So I mean, it might not go the way you think it will right now, but kind of having that idea of where you want to go, I think is a great start. What I'd kind of like to do next is, I kind of see everybody in the world, my audience, whoever's watching, everybody's kind of on their own ruck, however they kind of see it. And, like we talked about, rucks are tough, and on an actual ruck, you get blisters, the ruck gets heavy. And so sometimes, you stop, you take a break, you change out your socks, switch out your boots, drink some water, take a knee. And, in the military, when you do that, you kind of have your leaders running around, kind of checking on everybody. And so I guess my question to you is, somebody's rucking alongside you and they need to take a knee. They need to, they've got crazy blisters on their feet, metaphorically. They need to take a knee, have some water. You're right there next to them. What are one or two things that, have kind of helped you on your ruck or rucks, that you might impart to that person to kind of, encourage them, like, yeah, it's tough, but, put on that fresh pair of socks, put your boots back on, like, grab your ruck, keep going.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said is the biggest thing, is just continue to, push yourself and that person. To me, my favorite word in the whole English dictionary is empathy. I will always live my life I will always strive to show empathy to everyone I meet, whether it's a stranger, whether it's my mother, whether it's, it doesn't matter. To me, empathy can just trumps everything. So that's where, like, that first step comes in when you have someone next to you and they're struggling, is just show that empathy. I understand. I see where you're coming from, like, just understand how they got there and understand what they're feeling in that moment. Because then once you can understand and relate to them and be able to, find that common ground, that's when things can really push to the next level and you can push them. Because then by pushing them, you're pushing yourself as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my advice, is just being there for people, emotionally as well as, physically.
Okay. I guess if you had to kind of give them like maybe something like a strategy or a tactic, maybe that, like, you found useful to you when, you've been that person that's needed to take a knee, that you could, like, pass on to them.
Sure. When it comes to sitting on the side of the road and feeling, like you got to take a break, I mean, you have to. And I think it's almost a realization that it is reality, and you have to take a break. You can't always go 100 miles per hour, to the goal that you want to reach. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned in my rucks in life is, as I want to get from A to B, in 2 minutes. But after realizing that 2 minutes is probably not feasible, you have to be, okay, no, I can still get from A to B, but it can take me 10 minutes. So I think just being able to accept the fact that you need to take a break to hydrate and to, calm your feet down from bleeding and, and all this stuff, like, you have to, because you can't always have your full energy, and you need your full energy to be able to get from A to zillion.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's a really good tip. I think, learning that sometimes you do legitimately need to take a break is really good. I think a lot of people kind of struggle with that, as they feel like they need to be always on all the time. And it's okay to.
And I think adding to that is if people want to help you, like, let them. Like, if you do need help, like, accept their help, because it's a lot of things you can't do alone. If you need someone just to listen to you, like, sometimes just talking through things is, like, the biggest help. They don't have to say a word, but just getting the words out of your mouth that's been in your head for the last, 30 days, like, sometimes it just helps just to talk it out. So I think, it's accepting the fact you need a break, and then accepting the fact that, just having someone there to listen might be, something that could benefit you too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that I appreciate that. I think that's a good reminder for me. I think that's a good reminder for anybody. Is I think a lot of times, think we can do it all. But I mean, I think the greatest things that ever get accomplished are accomplished by teams, by people working together. So that's awesome. Well, before we wrap up, I want to let everyone know how they can follow you, how they can follow Get Back Up.
Yeah. So my podcast is on a bunch of different platforms. Apple Podcasts is probably the easiest if you have an iPhone. But I have a full site or an Anchor account. You can go to Anchor, find it there. I'm struggling to get it on Spotify right now. I've been fighting with them for like a year, and I still can't get it on. So I'm working with Anchor on Spotify. So it'll happen though. But I have it on Breaker and Google and a bunch of other ones. So honestly, if you just search for it, it's just a white background with a black lettering that just says "Get Back Up." And like I said, it's just based on positive mentality and being able to get through any sort of hardships you might be having, but just in general that everyone needs that Monday positive bit. So I also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page as well. So
awesome. Well, I will make sure to put links to all of those. So that way anybody that watches and that piques their interest, they want to follow you, they can do it quickly and easily. I really appreciate you being on the show, being my first guest. I'm hoping I can stick with this and, maybe we'll have you back on some point down the road and kind of see where you are on your Rucks then.
Yeah, I'd love to be a recurring guest. I appreciate it. Thanks for, thinking of me and having me on. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Nick, and have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Ruck On Show. Be sure to follow us on social media and reach out to let us know what you thought of today's episode. If you feel so inclined, please leave a 5-star rating and a review on iTunes. See you next time. Thanks for listening.